This is Earl Nightingale. Some time back, a friend of mine, Bud Irish, told me a story that affected me so deeply I haven't been able to get it out of my mind. Now, I don't know where the story originated, probably many years ago according to Bud, but it changed my outlook on life. It caused me to make some quick and radical changes in my personal affairs, and simply because of this story, my family and I have an independence we didn't have before. I want to pass this story along to you in the hope that it will affect you as deeply as it affected me, and will result in your achieving the same happy state in life that my family and I have. I want to tell you the story of the money machine. How would you like to have a machine in your home which each year would turn out a supply of money equal to your present income? Each month, all you'd have to do is go to the room where you keep your money machine and scoop up a sum of money equal to your present monthly income. In the years ahead, just as your income will increase, this money machine would turn out an increasing amount of money, month in, month out, year after year. In 10 years, this machine would turn out a sum of money equal to 10 times your present yearly income, probably more since your income will very likely increase substantially in the years ahead. The money turned out by this machine would be official legal tender, which you could spend anywhere in the world. In your mind, get a mental picture of the sum of money this machine would turn out in 10 years. Now, this machine is free. It costs you nothing. And it could go on turning out this income every month for 30, 40 years, maybe more. I have no way of knowing what your present income is, but even without increasing it in 40 years, the number of years most men work, it comes to quite a sum of money. With the average working man, it would come to more than $200,000, nearly $250,000, a fortune. This would be quite a machine, this money machine, wouldn't it? But there is one small catch to it. You must keep this money machine in your house. You cannot put it in a bank vault for safekeeping, nor can you hire anyone to guard it. It must just sit there in the room you've selected for it, turning out money every day. Now let me ask you this question, and in your mind, answer it as honestly as you possibly can. If you had such a money machine in your house, for how much money would you insure it? Now think a moment. In 10 years, it would turn out how much money? You can't keep it in a vault, you can't hire guards to protect it, and you have no assurance whatsoever that it will not break down at some future date. Now, for how much money would you insure your money machine? Since such a machine could go on turning out this money for 40 years, it might be a good bet to insure it for at least 10 years' income, wouldn't it? Or as close to 10 years' income as you could afford, right? Well, I think most people will agree that this makes pretty good sense, since the cost of insurance is always small compared to the total coverage. Well, you have such a money machine. It's the man of the house, and this is the sound of his heart. Each month, he turns up with a certain amount of money, month in, month out, year after year. In 10 years, he'll earn what? How much? And the average man works for 40 years. How much money is that, in your case? Now, while a husband and father is infinitely more precious, more loved than any machine could ever be, he really is, in fact, a money machine. But there's a catch to this machine, too. You can't keep him in a bank vault. You can't hire men to guard him. You can't even keep him in the house. Every day, he must go out and take his chances in what is at best an unpredictable world. Now, as honestly as you can, answer this question. How much do you think he should be insured for? That's the story of the money machine. If it had the same effect upon you that it had on me, it answered the question, possibly for the first time in your life, how much is enough life insurance? It did for me. You see, insurance has never and can never pay for the loss of a loved one, nor was it at any time in its long and successful growth designed to do so. Money cannot be weighed on the same scale with a human life. The service it does render, and which can be rendered in no other way, is to replace, in the form of cash, income which may be lost at any time. What it does guarantee by contract and by law is to continue an income which will be needed just as much with the head of the house out of the picture, for as much and for as long as you specify. The service it does render is to replace, in the form of cash from the big central pool, a large sum of money, often out of all proportion to the small premium deposits, with which to provide for the economic side of a loss. Now, there's only one thing you know for sure about permanent life insurance. It must be paid. Someday, sooner or later, it must be paid. It will either come to a family which will need it badly in the possibility of the head of the house being taken out of the picture, or you can arrange to have it come as retirement income in the probability of the head of the house living. But the money must and will be paid by the company. There's no gamble involved, none whatsoever. Now, the question every thinking family must answer is, how much life insurance should I carry? We all insure our homes for their full value, our furniture, personal belongings, our cars. But how much is a man worth? Well, since it's impossible to place a monetary value on a man, I think the story of the money machine answers the question. It's a good idea to be covered for at least 10 years' income. When a man is young and starting out in life, he might not be able to afford to have that much in permanent form, but he can have part in permanent, the rest in term, and make sure he converts the term to a permanent form the minute he can afford it. Thank you. To my mind, your life insurance agent is fulfilling one of the most important jobs in the country today. If he were suddenly removed from our economy, it would shortly result in economic chaos for the entire country. The higher you go in income brackets, the larger the role played by life insurance. But one of the tragedies of our time is that the families most in need of life insurance, the wives and children who stand to suffer most, are not sufficiently educated and sophisticated to realize the urgency of adequate life insurance coverage. It seems that we in the free world frequently don't understand what freedom means. Freedom, or individual liberty, was never intended to guarantee financial security, but rather to give every citizen the freedom and opportunity to achieve financial security for himself and his family. To me, individual liberty means the opportunity to succeed if we're wise, or fail if we are not. But in the free world, every man can provide for his own financial independence if he lives, and for the financial independence of his family if he does not. And there is only one way on earth that he can guarantee it regardless of his age or income, and that's through life insurance. In my case, for example, if anything should happen to take me out of the picture, our home would come free and clear to my family. They would be guaranteed a fine home, debt-free, through insurance. My corporation would receive a large sum of money so that the surviving officers could properly replace me in my occasional contribution to its continuing success. At the same time, a large sum of money would be placed in trust, which would provide a substantial income to my wife for the rest of her life, send the youngsters through college, and help them get started in their own careers, all of it provided through the intelligent use of life insurance. But suppose nothing happens to me, which is what I'm counting on. In that case, the money comes to me in the form of retirement income if I need it, or as cash in a lump sum if I so decide. The only thing I know for sure is that it will be paid one way or the other. I make a profit if I live. My family makes a profit if I don't. Now, I don't claim to be the smartest man in the world, but as a businessman and as a husband and father, I can't think of a more intelligent approach to financial planning. I believe I have used the freedom guaranteed by my form of government to provide for myself and my family as a free man should. I don't want any handouts. All I want is opportunity to plan and live my life as a free man should, and I think you feel the same way about it. But let me tell you about what I consider to represent a major tragedy. Even though our people own billions of dollars of this basic family security, life insurance, as more and more realize the wisdom of it and see it in its true light, the average family is covered for only about 2 years of spendable income. I mean by that the average family, in the event the head of the house should suddenly be taken, and many, many thousands are each year, can only continue to live at their present standard of living for about 2 years. This means that the children can only be housed, fed, and clothed at their present standard for 2 years. Well, if you feel the same way about your wife and children as I do about mine, that's not enough. And what about the later years, the years after the kids are grown and married, when a man and his wife have the opportunity to do and see all the things they've always wanted to? Another tragedy. According to statistics, out of 100 young men who all start even at age 25, 40 years later, when they would be 65, only one is wealthy. Only 4 are independent for life. 5 are still working, 36 have died, and 54 are dead broke, dependent upon relatives or charity for support. And this in one of the richest countries the world has ever known. Why? I'll tell you why. Lack of planning. When only 5 out of 100 wind up financially independent, that's a lack of planning. And what are the families of the 36 who have died? According to the national averages, they left their families with enough money to live for 18 months. That's lack of planning. An hour of your time can put you into the top 5% of the people of this or any other country if you'll do what I've done. Sit down with your insurance man and go over your entire picture. You tell him what you want to do and let him show you how to do it. Realize, as I do, that your insurance man can be the most important guest to ever walk through your front door, and that your future and the future and well-being of your wife and children can be absolutely guaranteed by this man to be successful and free from financial worries and problems. Make sure that if you're not around, the home that means so much to you and your family will be theirs, debt-free and clear. Make sure that your wife will have an income for the rest of her life, so that she'll not be thrown out to flounder and compete in the labor market, but rather give the children the care and guidance they need, and that the children's education will be provided for so that they'll have an even break in the world. And make sure that if you live, you can spend what will probably be the best years of your life in carefree retirement, living and going where you please, when you please, doing the things you've always wanted to do, still setting an example to your children and showing them that you had the wisdom to do what you urged them to do, to live well and successfully all the days of your life in a climate of freedom. I hope what I've said here will help move you to do what I have done. Plan your future now, because from all the signs, it's going to be great. Remember the story of the money machine. Thank you. Hello, this is Earl Nightingale with the first of your Lead the Field messages, The Golden Age. The purpose of these messages is to remind us of those basic and unchanging principles which, if we'll but live by them, will guarantee our achieving the growth, success, and maturity each of us seeks. Our memories are short. Now, in one respect, that's good, in that we quickly forget our past mistakes, failures, and embarrassments. But it's bad in that we also tend to forget those things we need to remember daily if we're to achieve the greatness we seek. These short messages give us instant knowledge, and then in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead, they afford us a quick and effortless means of instant reminders. Unlike books, which we'd like to read again and again, and which we would have to do to fully assimilate their messages, but never do, you'll find these recorded messages wonderfully easy to listen to at any time of day or night. Just a few minutes of listening, and you're right back on the track again. How many times have you said or thought to yourself, I wish I'd known 10 years ago what was going to take place during the next decade? You know, if anyone had predicted just 10 years ago that we would be living in the kind of world we live in today, he would have been ridiculed. Now, this includes everything from our gross national product to the luxuries and new products we now take for granted. All right, let's take a look at what's going to happen during the next 7 to 10 years. Predictions about the future, even when we use the best minds available, are apt to be ultra-conservative, so you can assume that the next decade of this golden age will be much more remarkable than the picture I'm going to paint. According to many research projects, the next 10 years are going to offer business and the individual person the greatest rewards in the world's history. Population will increase by around 25% of the present figure. Think of it. In 10 years, a number equal to approximately 1/4 of the people we now have will be added to our population. And listen to this. In the next 8 to 10 years, the bulk of spending in this country will be for things over and above the necessities, which are food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and medical care. Imagine, most of the spending will be for things above and beyond the necessities. This will be the first time this has happened in the history of the human race. The gross national product will expand 50% and more in the next 8 to 10 years, an astounding increase soaring into the billions of dollars. You know, it's a known fact that you have deep reservoirs of ability, even genius, that you habitually fail to use. With this ability, these messages, and the unprecedented future, you have all you need and more to achieve the things you want and should have in our abundant world. Let's cut loose and start today to build this new world for ourselves, our loved ones, and the country. We can either grow with the economy and times or go backwards. We can't stand still, even if we'd like to. If you listen to one of these Lead the Field messages every day for the next 90 days, you can increase your sales by any amount you definitely decide upon. In fact, you can sell as much new business during the next 90 days as you had planned to sell during the entire next year. Our files are full of such cases. One man who had averaged $7,000 a year in commissions for 7 years more than tripled that amount in 6 months to $26,000. Nothing changed except his attitude toward himself and his business. The insurance salesman is one of the few persons in our society who establishes his own wage. So at the conclusion of this message, sit down to a sheet of paper and figure out the hourly wage you're willing to spend your valuable time earning. If you decide that you're going to give your profession 10 or 12 full hours every day, 5 or 6 days a week, I say 10 or 12 full hours because I've never heard of anyone amounting to very much on an 8-hour day, fine. Let me give you an example. Let's say you decide to earn $10,000 during the next 12 months, allowing time for vacations and so forth. Now this means your commissions will have to come to $200 a week. If you devote 10 full hours a day, 5 days a week to selling, this means you need earn only $4 an hour. You must see to it that each hour is worth $4. It also means that if you waste 1 hour a day of time that should be devoted to your business, you're throwing away $1,000 a year. If you decide on $15,000, simply increase these amounts by 50%. For $20,000, double them, and so on, projecting to any amount you wish. 10 hours a day dedicated to your business leaves you with 14 to do with as you please. If you sleep 8, it still leaves you 6 full hours a day, plus Saturday and Sunday. You see, the first step toward achievement is to realize that the only thing we own, the only thing we all have the same amount of, is time. How we spend this most precious of all possessions will determine our future. You've got the same amount of daily time that Shakespeare had, or Columbus, or Einstein, or the #1 man in your company last year. Time is the great equalizer. It's what we do with it that makes us great, or keeps us small. Now, you've got great years stretching ahead of you, and you'll have to live them one day at a time. Forget the past, it's over. Don't try to look too far into the future. It can cause you to overlook the present. Take this day and the next 89. Take just 90 days out of your lifetime and show yourself and the world what one man can do with just 3 months. If you will, you'll never again fall back to where you were before. Today I'd like to tell you about the magic word. It's called the magic word because those who have discovered how to properly apply it have found their lives dramatically, almost magically changed for the better. Suddenly they've joined the ranks of that small group of people the uninitiated call lucky. People who always seem to get the right breaks at the right time. People that others say have the golden touch. If you're a family man, I hope you'll share this message with your wife and the youngsters. They'll find the change in their lives as dramatic as you will. Now, maybe you already know about the magic word. If so, you're 1 in 100. Now, before I tell you what the word is, I think it would be best to remind you of something you may not have thought about. You know, most of the world's creatures are endowed with protective coloring so that they blend in with their natural surroundings. A deer standing motionless in the forest is invisible to all but the most experienced eye. The tiger in the tall grass, or trout in the stream, the quail in the undergrowth, each of them needs this protection for survival. But from one creature, this gift was withheld, so that he stands out clearly in any surroundings. One creature, the king of the earth, man himself. The reason is that he was given an incredibly greater gift. Of all the millions of creatures of earth, only he was given the incalculable, the godlike power to make his surroundings change to fit him. As he changes, his world changes to reflect the changing man. And the word that expresses what it is about us, that makes our world what it is the magic word. And the magic word is attitude. That's right. The magic word is attitude. Let me explain. Attitude is defined as the position or bearing as indicating action, feeling, or mood. It is our bearing, it is the way we feel, it is the mood we habitually hold that will determine the success of any situation. The great William James of Harvard put it this way: the greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. Can alter their lives, get that, by altering their attitudes of mind. Think back to the times when you felt great, when everything was right with the world and you couldn't do anything wrong. You've had days like that. But did you realize at the time that it's quite possible to have practically all of your days like that? Instead of waiting for this bearing, this feeling, this mood to happen to you, you can create it yourself with a little practice. You see, you may have been waiting for this attitude to strike you before reacting to it, as do most people. The really successful people of the world have learned to turn the whole thing around. You know, actions trigger feelings, just as feelings trigger actions. But instead of waiting for the right feeling to come along to cause you to act successful, by acting as though you are successful, by deliberately holding a successful attitude, you'll find that the feeling, the mood, the bearing will come as a natural result. So here's the way it works. In your mind's eye, get a clear picture of the person you would most like to be. The successful insurance underwriter who has a fine clientele that keeps him as busy as the successful doctor or lawyer. He knows they desperately need, the protection he and his company can give them, and so do their friends, acquaintances, and neighbors. He's a one-man crusader to see that every person he comes in contact with is going to have the kind of protection he and his family need for the months and years ahead. He knows that the average family has only enough insurance for about 2 years of spendable income in the event the head of the house should be taken out of the picture through death or serious accident. He knows that every day finds businesses losing extremely valuable key men that will take months, even years to replace, and that this takes money, lots of money, that only he and his company can provide. The successful insurance underwriter never takes a hat-in-hand, diffident attitude when he approaches a prospect, just the reverse. He knows that he's often the most important man who will ever walk through that person's door, the door of his home or the door of his business, and he acts the part. He knows he must take charge of the interview and convince the people he's talking to of the importance of acting now before it's too late to act. He also knows that as he matures in the business, the time will come when the no's will almost cease entirely and that the yeses will replace them. He knows that he must stop thinking entirely about the commissions he'll earn. If the thought of the commission dominates his thoughts, he cannot do the job he should be doing for the client. Protect the client. Sell the client the protection he needs, and the commissions will take care of themselves. The great men in all fields, medicine, law, acting, art, music, you name it, are those men who are completely wrapped up in what they're doing. The doctor, the good doctor, isn't thinking about his fee. He's doing his very best to perform a successful operation. The lawyer is trying to win the case. The actor is trying to put on the best performance of his career. The composer is living his music. And the great men in the insurance business are those who forget themselves completely and work only for the good of their clients. Success in this business is like the old story of happiness. Happiness is like a butterfly. If you chase it across the fields, it'll elude you. Instead, be quiet. Concentrate on your work, and it will come and land on your sleeve. Beginning right now, today and tomorrow and the day after, every day from now on, go out in the morning with the attitude of the person you know you will become, the successful, the distinguished underwriter who is welcome everywhere. Do the job for the people they need so desperately. Help them, work with their friends and neighbors, and their friends and neighbors, and their friends and neighbors. And one fine morning you'll wake up to discover that you've become the man you set out to become. The attitude that began as an act, that you forced yourself to deliberately hold, will have become real. You will be the living embodiment of the man you set out to be, and your world will reflect that man. Your income, your home, your neighborhood, your entire world will as accurately reflect the new man as your present world reflects the person you are now. So, the magic word is attitude. Begin today to let its magic go to work in your life. This is Earl Nightingale, and thank you. Did you ever hear the story of Acres of Diamonds? It's about an African farmer who, upon learning of the rich diamond strikes being made, sold his farm so that he too might search for the precious stones. The man who bought the farm found that it was literally covered with diamonds that the former owner had overlooked, and the farm became one of the world's richest diamond mines. This story, made famous by Dr. Russell Conwell, founder of Temple University, has an important lesson in it for all of us. Each day, each of us spends his time in an area rich with diamonds waiting to be picked up, if we'll form the habit of watching for them and then taking action when we see them. Let's take a look at this subject from the standpoint of the insurance underwriter. His diamonds are everywhere. Every man, every family in his entire area of operations needs insurance. We know definitely from the national statistics that practically every one of them is dangerously underinsured. The average insurance underwriter drives or walks by more insurance prospects every day than he could adequately handle in 5 years. And in looking for the answers why so many men never discover their acre of diamonds, I turned to one of the really great men of this business, Mr. Albert E.N. Gray. In a speech he made before the National Association of Life Underwriters in Philadelphia, this veteran underwriter and executive said that the secret of success in this business lies in forming the habit of doing things that the failures don't like to do. Let's repeat that statement. The secret of success in this business lies in forming the habit of doing things that the failures don't like to do. The things that failures don't like to do are the very things that you and I and other human beings, including successful men, naturally don't like to do. In other words, we've got to realize right from the start that success is something which is achieved by the minority of men, and is, therefore, unnatural, and not to be achieved by following our natural likes and dislikes, nor by being guided by our natural preferences and prejudices. And all the things that insurance men don't like to do can be disposed of by saying that they all emanate from one basic dislike peculiar to our type of selling. We don't like to call on people who don't want to see us and talk to them about something they don't want to talk about. Any reluctance to follow a definite prospecting program, to use prepared sales talks, to organize time and to organize effort are all caused by this one basic dislike. Then the key to picking up the precious stones that cover your own acres of diamonds is to understand this and admit it. Admit it to yourself and admit it to your prospects. But the overriding fact remains that whether we like it or not, or whether our prospects like it or not, they still need the insurance and will thank you for doing the things the failures will not do, and selling them on this need, and filling the need for them. The man receiving his monthly retirement checks will thank you for selling him on the need while there was still time to provide for it. The widow who receives the money from your company that she so desperately needs will thank you 1,000 times for getting her and her husband to talk about something they didn't want to talk about and causing them to do something about it. The boy who gets a college education will thank you, and so will his parents. What man in what other line of business can so bring comfort, financial security, and peace of mind to so many people? The successful insurance man is the man who does what the failures don't like to do. Almost before he knows it, he's formed this incalculably valuable habit until it's second nature to him. And he finds that his acres are loaded with diamonds. There are diamonds to be picked up everywhere he turns. But he must make a start and keep going from that start. When he delivers the contract and explains it to his new clients and compliments them upon their wisdom in taking so important and far-reaching a step, he knows that this family or this person stands at the center of a wide circle of friends and acquaintances. He needs the names of as many of these people as he can obtain. A name is a lead, and a lead is the insurance man's most valuable possession. The more names, the more leads, and each one of these precious names stands in the center of another great circle of influence that can be mined for many weeks, months, and years. An insurance man in San Francisco wrote to me that he'd gone into his files and called back upon every person he'd ever sold who still lived in his area. He called back on them to find out how they were doing and to increase their insurance and to obtain new referrals from them. That year, for the first time, he made the $1 Million Roundtable. This simple thing of going back to every person in his files resulted in more than $700,000 of brand new business. He found his acres of diamonds in his files. Don't wait until you have a file cabinet bulging with names that need calling back upon. Explore them as you write them, and then call back on them too when you feel the time is right. Prospecting is the key to discovering diamonds. You're surrounded by thousands of people who need what you have to sell and who are not being called upon by men who have never learned that to succeed we must do what the failures don't like to do. Begin today to really develop your acres of diamonds. Dedicate yourself. Commit yourself to filling this crying need as best you can. Do what the failures don't like to do until it's a habit. Stay with it. And your rich and teeming acres will produce an abundance for you and your loved ones beyond your fondest dreams. This is Earl Nightingale, and thank you. Have you ever watched a man walking down a street and wondered about him? Why does he dress as he does, live in his particular house, earn a particular income? Why does he talk the way he talks and believe in the things he believes in? Why is he the man he is? Well, we know a good part of the answers to this, and I think you'll find them interesting. But before I give you the answers, let me ask the same question about you. Why are you the person you are? Why do you earn the income you're presently earning, live where you live, talk the way you talk? If you don't know the true answer, it might come as quite a surprise. It's been said that all men are self-made, but it's only the successful ones who will admit it. This is true. And Kipling wrote, "If a person doesn't get what he wants in life, it's because he didn't want it badly enough or haggled over the price." In a sense, all men are successful in that they achieve that which they really want. Not what they say they want, perhaps even to themselves, but they end by achieving that which they insist upon achieving, all because of the little-known or understood fact that we become what we think about. This is why that man you see walking down the street wears the clothes he wears and lives in his particular house and receives his particular income. He is, as you look at him, the sum total of his thoughts. This is all any of us can be, the sum total of our thoughts. The Skid Row bum or the president of the company, the successful salesman or the unsuccessful salesman. We become what we think about. You are at this minute where your thoughts have brought you, and you'll be the person in 5 years where your thoughts from this point onward take you. But, and here's where the exciting part of the game comes in, each of us can control his thoughts. This means that since we become what we think about, we can control our future. It means we can determine the money we're going to earn, the home we're going to live in, the kind of life we're going to lead, provided we know what we want. Tests indicate that about 95% of the working men in this country don't know where they're going, do not have a worthwhile goal toward which they're daily directing their efforts. Now, you'll be calling on many of these people. You'll have an opportunity to help them, give new direction to their lives. To succeed at anything, a man must have a goal, a purpose, an ideal, something that makes his work worthwhile, something bigger and better than just earning a living for himself and his family. There must be something he's working toward that has for him an emotional, a sentimental appeal so strong that he'll spend his days doing what the failures don't like to do in order to bring it about. This goal should be practical, but not logical. That is, we don't get excited and charged up over logical things. Needs are logical, but wants and strong desires are sentimental and emotional. If this were not true, we'd all live in small prefab houses and drive small economical cars. This would be logical, but people aren't logical in their deeply felt wants and desires, nor should they be. For example, a house that provides only basic shelter could be a practical thing, but who wants to spend his lifetime living in a house which is strictly shelter? We would much rather live in a house reflecting charm and beauty and designed for gracious living. A small income might be a practical thing, but who wants to be restricted to a practical income? We'd much rather earn, and we can get much more excited about earning, a larger income. So the purpose of this message is to help you crystallize your next goal. After you've achieved it, and you will achieve it if you stay with it, you can then establish a new goal for yourself to win. Now, what is it that you want that has the power to fill you with excitement? So much so that you'll stay on course until it's been achieved. It's this sort of goal that makes the successful insurance man. He carries his dream in his heart and in his mind. He's made up his mind to achieve it in the time limit he's established, and away he goes. This is the man who is not easily put off by the words, "I want to think it over," or "I'd like to talk this over with my wife," or "we can't afford it just now." This is the man who closes, who stays with the interview until every objection has been swept away where it belongs and the application signed and the check made out for the first premium. Success has been defined as the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Any man with a worthy ideal toward which he daily directs his efforts is a success. Success is not in the achievement, but rather in the achieving. Now, what's your goal? No other business gives you the flexibility of setting your own income as does the insurance business. What income will you settle for this year? And for your own peace of mind, get those sales as early as you possibly can. In this way, you can build some extra sales to tide you over for the days you may not be able to work. And above all else, stay on course. Once you set your goal, never waver from it. Hold it in your mind each morning as you set out, and think about it again before you fall off to sleep. By doing this, you can go from one success to another all the years of your life. Every man needs a worthy destination. It's a must if we're to succeed. Now, what's yours? Each time you listen to this message, even weeks and months from now, you'll gain something new. This is because you're constantly changing, as is the world around you. Your problems, needs, desires, and goals change. And as they do, you'll find new and beneficial answers from repeated listening to this and the other messages. This is Earl Nightingale, and thank you. How would you feel if someone came to your home and told you that you'd been left a legacy which would provide you with an income of, say, $1,000 a month for the rest of your life? That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Well, you have such a legacy. It was given to you at birth. No one can take it away from you, and you may set it for any amount you really want. It doesn't have to be 1,000. We call it the miracle of your mind. Everything a family receives, its home, income, clothes, the education of its children, vacations, all of this is the result of how the adults in this family have been using their minds. Have you ever given this much thought? You see, without our miraculous minds, we would be no better off than cattle. And to the extent that we use our minds properly, and remember that word properly, will we prosper. The mind is a problem-solving agency. A small child wants to get over the back fence. He studies the fence for a while and then begins dragging an empty box to its base. He stands on the box, grasps the top of the fence, and he's over. Right there, we've seen the mind successfully solve a problem. And solving all problems, no matter how complex, follows the same pattern. We are confronted with a problem. It's the fence standing between where we are and where we want to be. The solution of the problem is the box that gets us over. Robert Seashore, chairman of the Department of Psychology of Northwestern University, wrote, "Successful people are not people without problems. They're simply people who've learned to solve their problems. They are simply people who have learned to solve their problems. And the purpose of this message is to provide you with a formula that will help you solve yours. Now, before I give you this formula, which can result in your getting everything you want in life, let me make an important point. Anything can be used creatively or destructively. We all know the extent to which the mind can be used destructively, but the most common everyday destructive use of the mind is in the form of worry. Before you can solve a problem with an adding machine, it must be cleared of all previous problems. Well, the mind seems to work much the same way. You can't be creative and solve problems if your mind is filled with worries. With the same time that people spend in worry, they could be solving their problems. Worry bogs down the mental machinery, and almost all worry is useless. Now, here's a reliable estimate of the uselessness of worry. Of the things people worry about, 40% will never happen. Things that are over and past and can't be solved by all the worry in the world, 30%. Needless worries about our health, 12%. Petty, miscellaneous worries, 10%. And real, legitimate concerns, 8%. Now, this means that 92% of the things we worry about take up valuable time and unnecessarily block good minds that could be creatively solving problems at the same time. So here are 2 points to remember. 1, you can have the things you want all the years of your life if you go about it as I'm going to suggest. And 2, stop worrying. Worry can't solve anything. It just jams and clutters up a mind, which, if we were to try to approximate electronically, would cost $3 billion to produce. Your mind is a living miracle, so let's use it creatively. And here's the formula for doing it. Set aside a time each day when you could be completely alone in a quiet atmosphere. I use the hour before the family's up in the morning. I make a fresh pot of coffee and sit down to a blank notepad. At the top of the sheet, write the problem you're trying to solve. It could be how to see more people, how to make a more effective presentation, how to move ahead in the insurance industry, how to earn a certain income, that legacy I mentioned in the beginning. But write down just one problem, never more than one fence at a time. You're looking for the box that will get you over. You know it exists. The job is to find it. All right? Start writing down ideas. No matter how quickly they come to your mind or how painfully slow at first, it takes a while to get the mind working smoothly if you've never done this before. Write down each idea. Many will be impractical, perhaps absurd. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about anything. Just write them down. 1 or 2 will be good ideas, and you can put them to work. Try for 20 ideas during this time. If you only get 5 or 2, fine, but try for 20. Then start putting your good ideas to work. Do this every day, at least 5 days a week. Now, the experts tell us that most of us operate on just about 10% of our mental capacity. If this is true of you, it means everything you're getting is the result of just using 10% of your mind. Use 20%, and you'll double everything. 30%, and you'll triple everything. And this is the way to do it. If a company increases its sales just 10% a year, it will double in size in less than 8 years. You can increase your sales 10%, 50%, 100% or more in a single month. Try this simple formula for using the only thing you've got that can bring you what you want, that wonderful mind of yours. You'll find this hour each day worth more to you than all the rest of them put together, if you'll follow through on your good ideas. You'll find yourself doing far more in far less time. You'll also find yourself enjoying your work and reveling in your newfound power to solve your own problems creatively instead of worrying about them. Tyron Edwards wrote, "There is nothing so elastic as the human mind. Like imprisoned steam, the more it's pressed, the more it rises to resist the pressure. The more we are obliged to do, the more we're able to accomplish." What do you want? It can be accomplished through the creative use of your mind. This is Earl Nightingale, and thank you.